Hey everyone, I'm back again. I'm going to do my second book review. It's another light novel, technically. This one's actually from Japan. It's been translated into English by Seven Seas Entertainment, Toradora Volume 1, and this thing's dirty. My books always go through hell when I read them. So, I heard a lot about this, the anime that was inspired by this series, as well as the series itself. I remember seeing a interview with the person who wrote, what was it, Ario's work is never done or whatever, and he said this book in particular, I guess, light novels were much more firmly in the realm of fantasy until this came out, and this kind of spawned a wave of, fluffier school life rom-coms. I guess Orimo and all those other books that became really popular. So that kind of spawned that whole wave. So, needless to say, I became interested in actually reading it and seeing what all the fuss was about. I pretty much got what I expected. I didn't expect anything too crazy or extravagant in the realm of romantic comedy. Typically, when things become popular, they escalate over time and get crazier. So, if you look at the modern isekai trend, it started off with a lot of much more normal books that became crazier as they went along. So you went from a guy doing sword fights and learning magic to opening up a pizza parlor, saving the world with pizza, being a vending machine, things like that. So what I expected was typically like maybe a run of the mill rom com, which isn't exactly what I got, but close enough. So I'm going to do this like I did the last video, where I'm going to kind of go over the basic plot setup, and then once I get to the part where there are serious spoilers, I'll give you guys a warning so you can skip to the end and just kind of listen to my final verdict. I hadn't seen the anime that was inspired by this, and I think that kind of helped because I think if I had seen it, I would have just been picturing that in my head the whole time, and having this kind of divorce from that, I think, really gives me a clearer head when I'm assessing the imagery that this writer is putting forth. Maybe I'll watch the anime eventually. It starts off with our main character. His name is Takasu Ryuji, and they make a lot of mentions to Ryu in his name, being a reference to like dragons. One of the things I really liked about this book was that it gave the main character like a really distinct personality and like life and everything. So he lives with his mother, who works for like a hostess bar, or they call them in Japan girl bars, I think, sometimes. And so she basically dresses in like scantily clad outfits and tries to get guys to buy drinks by like flirting with them and things like that. And the dynamic they set up between him and his mother is that he acts more of a parent to his mother than she acts like a parent to him. And his father is out of the picture, and it kind of it's very vague with how his father went. I guess his father used to be a mobster, and his mother claims that he was killed, he was gunned down, but he remarks a few times in the book that he thinks his father might still be alive and is just out there committing crimes through Tokyo or something. But so they set up an interesting dynamic with those two. And they also have a pet bird. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Napoleon Dynamite, but his interactions with his pet bird are kind of reminiscent of Napoleon's interactions with his pet llama, Tina. He doesn't like the pet too much, but he will begrudgingly take care of it. And another thing they said about this Ryuji is that he has scary eyes. I think they're called the Sanpaku eyes or something like that. And basically what that means is he has the eyes of a crazed person. And like not just like mean looking eyes, but like the eyes of someone who's severely deranged and you would want to avoid at all costs, which is unfortunate for him, and it hurts his social life quite a bit. Like they have this little bit at the beginning where he it kind of like describes how people talk about him. Like here, I'll read a little sample of it. Yikes! I'm in the same class as Takasu-kun. He's as tough as they come. A little scary. Someone talk to him. No way, take it from me, that's impossible, you go. Hey, don't push me. And so it went on and on. No matter what they say, Ryuji thought, I am the way I am. I won't be bothered by it. Ryuji accepted the surrounding stares of his new classmates with indifference. Still seated at his desk, he turned his back slightly, causing people to avert their eyes. He quietly licked his parched lips. His jittering leg was an unconscious fidget. From the side, he looked like a predator, impatiently awaiting feeble prey. But that was just appearances. So, you kind of get the picture from that. And like, there's all these rumors going around the school about him being some kind of like criminal and delinquent and things like that. And I get that they're setting this up for the characterization and for the purposes of plot. But I don't really... I don't know if this is like a Japanese high school thing, but I didn't have rumors like this in the school I went to. It was more like, oh, so-and-so has herpes, and oh, so-and-so, they had a threesome, and it's just really like dumb, petty crap like that. Didn't really go into this realm. But, I'll suspend my disbelief for that. So, he has this kind of reputation for being a delinquent and being a troublemaker. And it introduces a few characters quickly after that, so he goes to school. And one of these characters is his school crush. Her name is Kushieda Minori. Describes her... I like the way it describes her when she comes in. I'm going to read it in my best Dan Carlin voice, if you've ever watched Hardcore History. He fumbled for his words, but was too taken aback by the sudden spectacle of a goddess assailing him. Her smile dazzled him, bursting out like the sun. It was as warm as the stolen light that once shined through his southern window. A warmth that suffused his vision all at once with radiant beams. The overflowing particles of light clung to him until Ryuji could no longer keep his eyes open. End quote. So it has like the book kind of has flavor text like that sprinkled throughout, which is nice. I like it when authors kind of take some time with their prose and try to make it a little bit more colorful and make it pop a little bit more instead of just describing someone as cute or pretty. I remember I read the Kizumonogatari book, and there was like an entire page describing someone's panties, which was interesting. So she comes into the picture, and she's her character isn't as well defined, I think, as Ryuji's, or as we'll later see the most well known character from this series, Taiga. But she serves a purpose. She's there to be kind of his love interest, and kind of she's somewhat more normal than the other main characters. She's not normal, but there's like one scene where she describes making pudding in a bucket, and it was quite disturbing the way it described it, but other than that, she's much more grounded. So the next character it introduces is, I guess there's also his friend, what's his name, Kitamura, who's described as like a kind of like a nerd character, but he's more social than Ryuji is, and once again, he's a lot like this, like Minori. He's just kind of like there to give the story some grounding. His personality isn't too over the top or anything. But then we have Taiga, who is she's not a very nice person. I saw a lot of people kind of like over the years. I've seen references to this show and people talking about how much they like Taiga as a person, and like, oh, Taiga's my waifu, she's so cute. She's actually kind of a garbage person. Like, the relationship between Taiga and Ryuji kind of starts off with... So she accidentally puts a love note to his friend Kitamura in his bag one day, and he like, when he goes to retrieve his bag, she freaks out and like tries to like steal it from him violently. And then once he gets home that night, she breaks into his house. She commits several felonies, including attempted murder, and she basically tries to bludgeon him with a stick. And So let me find a little passage to read here. Shut up. Now that you know about the letter, I can't bear to live with the shame. The only thing left for me to do is die. The sword's point lunged for his Adam's apple. He's talking about the wooden sword she has. Yikes, you say you'll die, so why are you trying to kill me? Ryuji avoided it with downright miraculous reflexes, but Isaka's power was intense. It's Taiga. She used the power to cut straight into the sliding door, in parentheses, the repair bill, then followed through with another lunge. In those wide-open eyes there was no hesitation, just desperation and resolve. I'd rather kill you than kill myself. Sorry, but please die. And if you can't manage that, erase all your memories. How the heck am I supposed to do that? Trust me, it's not impossible. She glanced at the wooden sword she brandished. If I knock you over the head with this, even if you survive, it should at least give you amnesia. No knocking, thanks. So, at the very least, she was planning on bludgeoning him until he lost his memory of the love note that she put into his backpack. And then furthermore, the envelope that the love note was supposed to be in was actually empty, so none of this, it was all for nothing, basically. So that's kind of her character's big, it's not her character's introduction, but it's like the first scene where you actually see just how bad her personality is. So basically what happens is she ends up falling unconscious, I guess, because she hadn't eaten in like several days. And Ryuji, being the nice guy that he is, makes her fried rice, even though she basically tried to murder him over something extremely petty. Ryuji's basically just a nice guy. He's a real good guy, Greg, despite his appearance. Him and Isaka or Taiga, whatever you want to call her, it switches back and forth in this book, but they're kind of set up to be kind of opposites. So, like, he's really scary looking, but he's also a real nice guy, whereas Taiga, she's, like, very small and frail looking, but she's very mean and picks fights with a lot of people. So it does have that kind of aspect of, like, oh, they're opposites, isn't this wacky? He's a real good guy. He ends up making her some fried rice using what little food he has left in his family's refrigerator. And, he tries to, like, convince her to leave before his drunk mom comes home. Anyway, please, I'll never say anything about what happened to anyone. I won't act like you're stupid either. Honestly, we're in the same boat now. So come on, just tell me that's good enough. I can't. Why can't you go home? And he puts, like, periods after each word. Please go home. My sick mom is going to get back. In one sense, she really did have a disease. He wasn't completely lying, but... No, I can't trust you, and also... Suddenly, like a child, Isaka curled up and held her legs. She sat down in the middle of the living room. She rubbed her cheeks into her knees, tracing words into the old tatami mats. Hey, that love letter. I wonder if... You don't think it's too early to send one, right? Now she was asking for love advice. Ah! Ryuji tore at his hair. We can spend plenty of time discussing stuff like that next time, so please go home. I'm begging you. You mean it? You really will give me advice next time? I will. I definitely will. I'll do whatever you want. I'll help with whatever you want. I swear. You'll help with anything? For me? I will. I'll do anything. Anything, right? You said anything, right? Like a dog. You'll do it. Like you're my dog. You'll do whatever. You do anything for me. I will. I'll do it. I swear. Whether it's as a dog or whatever, I'll do it. So please just leave it at that, okay? So she ends up leaving, and then later that morning, she calls him and orders him to come over to her apartment, and she wants him to make like a plan so she can kind of confess her love to his friend without actually confessing it, because she's too scared to do that. So that's kind of the setup to the plot. He ends up casting this kind of subservient role to this really just trash individual. Like, he goes over to her apartment, and this describes how, like, there were like months worth of dirty dishes just piled up in the sink, and how the place just smelled like it was rotting and everything was filthy. And he actually ends up cleaning much of her kitchen and then like cooking for her and stuff. And he seems like a real great guy. I mean, like everyone's always talking about Taiga and everything, but like, man, Ryuji is like, he's like husbando material, man. Like, I'm surprised more people don't talk about him. Like, he's a cool guy. Like, I'd rather date him probably. Anyway, so I guess that's the main setup of the book, and from here on, there's going to be more major spoilers to talk about the rest of the book. So if you wanna skip forward and kind of hear my final opinion on it, I'll do what I did last time and just kind of put it right here, the time for, yeah, there you go. I'll put the time code right here for you to skip to. Basically, what happens after that is they get into like a bunch of like comical situations, some better written than others, where they try to like maneuver things in a way to where she can like spend more time with Kitamura. And like there is one weird like sitcom scheme where they're supposed to like play catch or something in gym. They throw a ball to each other and he's like, you can pair up with me and then I'll throw the ball really hard at whoever Kitamura is paired up with, and then we'll use that as an excuse to have you pair up with him, which actually it makes no sense whatsoever, but it's like, okay, well, I'll go with it. And there's also like a situation involving like them trying to eat lunch together, and another one involving cookies and things like that, and all of them end up miserable failures, mostly due to like Taiga's incompetence, but somewhat Ryuji's. Neither of them are very good at this at all, and it describes Taiga as a klutz, as not particularly the brightest person, and it does. I mean, it goes pretty far into explaining why she acts the way she does. I think it gives some pretty good reasons for it. Obviously, she's still pretty garbage. For just the way she acts, she's not particularly nice, but you do kind of gain a better understanding for why she acts the way she does. You know, basically she was kind of like she got into a fight with her parents, I guess is the explanation, and she was like, well, I'd rather live alone than with you guys, and they were just like, oh, okay, have fun, and they just kind of dropped her off in this apartment by herself, and she was not taught any like social skills by them. She wasn't taught any like how to care for herself, basically, and so she just kind of like just existed and just like a wild animal in this house. I mean, given that the contrast between her personality and background and Ryuji's makes for a pretty entertaining dynamic between the two. You know, like I said earlier, they're like polar opposites. Ryuji's had a lot of responsibility forced onto him since he was really young, and Taiga's kind of the opposite. She just kind of had like her life responsibilities just more recently forced onto her. So you have that nice dynamic between them, and how he's kind of like a neat freak, and he likes cooking his own meals. So that's nice. But eventually, like later on, like they become like more comfortable with each other than you would really expect. Here, I'll read this passage. This is like about 160 pages in. The book, by the way, pretty big print, which I like. It looks like a pretty thick book when you buy it, but it's a quick read. So later on in the book, we see this passage. Before they knew it, Takasu Ryuji and Isaka Taiga had gotten completely used to each other. They acted just like family. That was only natural, however, as their lives have grown almost completely interdependent. In the morning, in order to keep Isaka from sleeping in, Ryuji would pick her up from her condo. He made the bento boxes at home and brought them over, and while Isaka was dressing, he prepared a simple breakfast. Then they both left home together, and after reaching Minori, they would put some space between themselves. With a subtle feeling of distance, they walked to school. Once they got there, they came up with new strategies to capture Kitamura on a daily basis. When it came time to actually execute the plans, however, they generally failed. When they went home, they went to shop at the supermarket, and until recently, they made dinner at Isaka's house. So you kind of get a picture of like where they're at. Like they end up developing this kind of daily routine where he not only cares for, you know, his mother and their weird ugly bird thing, but also cares for Taiga. There's another passage I really liked that kind of showed their relationship and kind of where they're at this point. By the time Ryuji realized it had already come to this. He rubbed away his drool with the back of his hand and, in a fluster, called out across the table, "Hey, Isaka, wake up." At some point, it seemed they had both fallen asleep while leisurely watching TV. They were still lying around on the tatami mat, Ryuji in his tracksuit and Isaka in her frilly dress. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, so they're just they're just so comfortable with each other by this point that they're like watching TV and just falling asleep, like, you know, like an old couple or something. It's like, oh, that's cute. Like, almost makes you forget that she's like a crazed maniac. But I couldn't help but wonder while I was reading this book, like the whole main goal of the story, like what they're working towards is having Taiga group up with like Kitamura and like confess her love to him, and I guess the end goal is for her to date him, and then that would let Ryuji get with Minori or whatever her name was. Ryuji knows that this girl's personality is really rotten, so like, would hooking her up with his friend to satisfy his own personal gain, for his own personal gain, be like the greatest thing to do? I mean, like, and especially early on in the book, like later on, they kind of grow more accustomed to each other, but early on, he doesn't like her at all, but he's like, okay, I'm gonna help you get together with my friend. I don't know. I know he's usually a good guy, but I think in that kind of sense, he's really more selfish than he lets on, and I don't think the book really does a good job at recognizing that. It does make for some interesting, you know, interactions and stuff. So I guess I can understand why the book went in that direction. But eventually, like, this stuff kind of catches up to him, and as you would expect from the interactions early on in the book, people start just assuming that Ryuji and Isaka are like dating, you know, because they do actually act like a married couple eventually, and there's this really, like, I want to say clumsily done interaction where they're on like the school rooftop, and like Minori, she takes Taiga up and Ryuji up to the rooftop and like confronts them and says like, oh, I accept your relationship, you don't have to hide it from me. And then Kitamura comes up as well and goes like, yeah, I agree with that, you guys are dating now. And they try to like object to it, but they both Ryuji and Taiga, like, they go completely silent. That's not how that kind of situation would theoretically happen at all. It's done in like a really, like, I mean, I know it's like a light novel and everything and anime inspired, but like it's done in like a super anime-ish, cartoonish way. And compared to how like realistic other parts of this book are, it's kind of jarring when you just switch to like doing zany cartoon logic and physics. Another example is a scene where Taiga is like chasing after Kitamura, and like she like slips on some stairs and falls down, but she doesn't just like fall backwards, she like falls down the entire like stairwell. I don't know how it worked, just like zany cartoon physics like that. So that like going back and forth between being like more serious and grounded and then being like goofy cartoon rom-com kind of stuff. I could do with less of that. I do wish it was more consistent in that regard. But for the most part, I think it does have kind of like a decent balance between those two kind of vibes. But the scene after the whole rooftop confrontation, it was actually pretty good. I guess like Ryuji and Taiga, they go to like this like Denny's type restaurant by like the side of the road, like a side of the highway, and they're just kind of like brooding. and they just have like this really good conversation about their lives and kind of open up to each other, and it's like kind of shows some real character growth. So like after that kind of rooftop scene that I didn't like very much, I kind of got rewarded with this one, and it's just well done. Like you could just really vividly picture these characters like in like a Denny's at at night, just kind of like sitting there brooding over cups of like soda. So I really like that, and like little interactions where it describes them going grocery shopping together and things like that. They that feel both like kind of anime-ish, but at the same time kind of grounded in reality. And I think the times when this book walks that line very well, I think is when it really shines, which is a good part of the time. I think like over half the time. So I won't want to be too negative and beat up this book too much. Taiga plans on confessing her love finally. The day that she does that, she like kind of like goes right back to her being like a complete piece of crap, and just kind of terrorizes the class to like try to as an attempt to dispel the rumors about her and Ryuji. It's not a very tactful way to go about it. I guess it kind of gets the job done, maybe. I don't think any rumors would be dispelled by doing it that way in real life, but suspension of disbelief here. Okay, maybe it does get the job done. And then she goes to confess her love to Kitamura. It doesn't really go very well. I'll just put it that way. I don't want to go spoil. I don't want to spoil too much, but there is a little twist to it at that part. The book kind of leans towards Ryuji almost kind of confessing his feelings for Taiga, but it doesn't go that far. And in the end, they're both kind of like in the same place they were like halfway through the book, where they're just him and Taiga are just together and they're plotting. I guess she still wants to pursue Kitamura, even though she was kind of rejected after confessing to him. And furthermore, like Ryuji, he kind of acknowledges that he doesn't really have a chance with Minori. He doesn't even have very decent rapport with her. She's just kind of someone who talks to him occasionally. It seems kind of like both of their goals are like really unrealistic at this point, and I guess that's the point, because you want to, obviously this is like volume 1, you want to stretch it out for multiple volumes, but it doesn't seem like that's gonna go anywhere. But I will probably read the next volume to see where this goes. I'm interested in seeing how the characters develop and what the writer decides to do with the plot from here. The writer by the way is like Yuyuko Takemiya. Not sure what else this individual has written. Art is done by Yasu. I guess I'll give my final verdict at this point and kind of just give my overall impression of the book. The story is very mixed. Like I said earlier, it goes back and forth between wanting to be more grounded, wanting to be more like cartoonish. But there were very, very few times when I actually felt like it pushed it too far. Like I was confused as to what was going on occasionally, and with books like this that have been translated, it's hard to tell whether or not that's due to maybe some clumsy translation here and there, or if it was the original writing that's at fault. And since I'm not fluent, or I'm not literate enough in Japanese to actually read the original one, I can't go into detail about that. But just know that some parts, the wording and the way the paragraphs were set up and the dialogue and everything, it just kind of confused me, and I had to like reread it a couple times. And overall, I just not too into this character here, honestly. The book kind of softens her up near the end, but like just straight from the beginning, I get that they're trying to establish that she's like a piece of crap. I don't know, man. Like I said, I'll probably read the next volume, but like she just seems like a deeply troubled, unpleasant person. As a character, I like Ryuji a lot more. So, as far as the artwork goes, it's not the greatest, most elaborate exquisite artwork that I've seen in a light novel, but it's, it gets the job done. Like, sometimes, while you're reading, they don't go too far into character descriptions usually, so you're kind of wondering what things look like, and then usually at those moments there's a nice little illustration to kind of like, gives you a nice little mental image of what you're supposed to be thinking about. And I think they do a pretty good job at not only with the actual artwork itself, but deciding which scenes to illustrate for you. So that made the reading experience just a little bit better. I'm not usually too picky about illustrations in light novels. Like, if they don't even have any at all, it's like, okay, fine. Like in this case, they can add to the overall experience, which I did appreciate. Would I recommend this? That's an interesting question. I guess I would. A lot of it seems kind of typical now that we've had so many different series of like romantic school life light novels. We see these like the famous tsundere trope, which once again this book kind of popularized. We see that a lot, and a lot of the same kind of like antics that go on this book were like emulated by other ones. What year did this originally come out? I think there's like a little note by the author at the end, and he mentions 2000 March 2006. So that was 13 years ago. I believe at that point visual novels were like the big thing. Like, it wasn't so much like now light novels, they're flying off the shelves, but back then there was like a lot of visual novels being adapted to anime. But even despite that, even despite feeling a bit kind of like a relic, I think it still does a good job at providing a story that you want to see to its conclusion, and providing characters that you want to keep reading about. Like I really like the protagonist. The whole light novel protagonist thing has become like a recurring joke or trope, if you will, where a lot of light novel protagonists are very generic characters that basically act as self-inserts for the authors. And I'm probably slightly guilty of this. I try to avoid it when I can, but it's often a lot easier to filter yourself into the main character instead of trying to like write through the eyes of like someone with a completely different personality. And while I could see maybe the author kind of putting himself into this particular character, he still felt like an actual person to me, and like the way his like family dynamic was described, like I think it's handled very well. And there's like little details that I really liked, like his only photo of his father he carries around in his wallet, but he never shows it to anyone. He just looks at it occasionally, and his father's described as like a big, like, yakuza looking guy. Like it describes how his mother, even though she's like kind of the sole breadwinner of the family, she just acts really irresponsibly. And they have like a flat screen TV, I guess, which she spent too much of the family's money on. And she describes at one point she has a single Chanel bag that she saved up for. Meanwhile her family's living in this cruddy apartment with like very little food in their fridge. Even though I wasn't particularly enamored with Taiga, I do think that her personality lent itself very well to the story, and it made me want to see some more personal growth from her later on. Yeah, I suppose I would recommend this book, to people like me who are into like more like the rom-com kind of school life stuff. This is my bag, so I'm probably gonna like it. But it's hard to tell who else would be interested in this kind of thing. But I mean, if you feel interested in it, like I said, it is a quick read. I got this for, what was it, $14. Not a whole lot. I mean, but it is a nice quality print and everything. And like I said, the font's pretty nicely big, so you're gonna fly through it pretty quick, and you're gonna feel really smart when you read it. So I suppose that kind of wraps this one up. I'm trying to consider what to do next. What I think I'll do is, I got this another indie book here. This volume 1 of A.R. Dragonfly by Josh Piedra. I don't know if I pronounced that right. But I'm interested in reading this one because it has some themes that are similar to to one of my books, Her Bittersweet Electric Life, in that the main character plays video games for a living. I guess she's supposed to be like a professional, like an esports kind of person, whereas mine, Nina here, was a speedrunner. So I kind of want to compare and contrast it a little bit with mine while I read it, and I'll probably end up doing a video review on this one. So if you have any questions or concerns or comments, or you just want to say hi to me, you can leave a comment down below. You can like the video. That's something you could do. You could dislike it if you hate my guts and you think I'm annoying, and if you think I was super harsh on the book, or if I liked it too much. If you think my taste is garbage, you can give me a downvote if you want. And you can make the ratio like super big in the downvote side, and then like super little on the like side, because none of it really matters anyway. I guess the algorithm will like eject me, but whatever.